The movie opens with a news anchor recapping a 2015 alien invasion of Earth, in which mimic aliens entered Germany via an asteroid and quickly ruled the majority of continental Europe by 2020. A significant battle was finally won in Verdun by the United Defense Force, a global military alliance using new exoskeleton technology to combat the alien threat. After that battle, Special Forces soldier Sergeant Rita Vertowski, who killed hundreds of the mimics, is hailed as a hero. A public relations officer named Major William Bill Cage awakens while being flown by helicopter to London to meet with General Brigham, the Western Allied commander. He believes Brigham asks him to help him enhance his public image. While they try to join their forces in France, Brigham orders him to provide cover for the media, but he declines, saying he lacks combat experience. Brigham cautions him, however, that he must follow the directive because it was given by a superior. If the invasion doesn't succeed, he then threatens to hold Brigham accountable. At first, Brigham seems to budge, but later, he orders Cage's arrest. At Heathrow Airport, which has been transformed into a military base, Cage awakens in the afternoon while lying on a stack of duffel bags. When he attempts to explain his rank and requests to make a phone call, Master Sergeant Farrell greets him and pulls out paperwork indicating that he is a deserter. In reality, Brigham has given Farrell instructions to downgrade Cage from officer to private and falsely accuse him of deserting. Cage has been assigned to the J Squad, a group of oddball soldiers that includes Ford Griff, Kimmel Skinner, and Nance. They all despise and make fun of Cage. To everyone's dismay, he discovers the team's card games when Farrell brings him to the squad to be introduced. He then informs the group that Cage is a deserter who will flee and holds the squad personally accountable for his actions. Then he gives the order to get Cage ready for the invasion operation that will take place the following day. While donning the suit, he is unable to operate it. He tries to weasel out of it by saying that he may hurt someone with his inexperience, but his teammates assure him that he won't if he has the safety on, which does not comfort him. Because they think he will pass away quickly, the squad members didn't even teach him to take his gun out of safety mode. Additionally, when they are in the aircraft, they pick on Cage, making him more anxious. The back of their airship explodes, causing the squad to descend prematurely, just as they are about to land on the French coast. He activates his weaponry as the last passenger in the plane. The language appears to be written in Japanese. He lands on the shore and witnesses the mayhem before pressing the release button just as the plane explodes. When he looks up, Rita is using a sword to fight the mimics despite being thrown back. Later, he sees another plane coming at him and ducks just in time. Rita manages to kill the attacker as she approaches him, but is suddenly shot and dies right in front of him. As their crew reassembles and it appears that their enemy anticipated their arrival, Cage, who was terrified, starts to flee in the opposite direction before being stopped by Farrell. They fortify themselves in the ditch and wait for the enemy to arrive. When Cage looks down at the ground and sees movement the mimics, he realizes that his efforts to remove his safety are failing. They discover that they have already reached their destination. He manages to fire his guns at the mimic, who was responsible for the death of his entire squad, but when another one shows up, Cage, who is still in shock and on the verge of passing away, reaches for a claymore mine as a huge blue mimic lunges at him. The blue mimic is instantly killed by the mine's explosion. He later screams in pain and wakes up in a panic on top of the duffel bags, where he was earlier, as some of the blood splashes on him and burns his face. When he next sees a bus, he immediately recognizes the woman as the same one he had seen earlier on the battlefield. When he gets to the battlefield, he meets Rita again, but this time he prevents her from being killed. Farrell is there, calling him a maggot and taking him back to J Squad. However, the gunfire wounds him. Rita takes his battery rather than keeping him, and the mimic kills him as a result. Later, when he awakens once more, he frantically tries to explain what is going on and how the mimics are going to surprise everyone. When Farrell returns with the squad, he tries to persuade them, but they begin to doubt him and tape his mouth. He is deployed and dies each time before awakening on the duffel bags. With each loop, he improves a little bit in his attempts to save the squad members and Rita. In one loop, he lives long enough to save Rita from the exploding ship that will also kill the approaching mimics. It is then that he realizes he has the ability to predict the future. Cage wakes up on the duffel bag again before they both pass away again. But this time, after several unsuccessful attempts to flee, he starts working with Farrell and the squad to find Rita on his own. Rita drops her sword and tells Cage to find her. After finally succeeding in breaking free, Cage locates Rita in a training hangar surrounded by practice drones. Rita gives him a stern look. After dying, Cage eventually experiences a mental vision in which he learns that the Omega is hidden somewhere in a dam in Germany. Rita and Carter think that Cage's alpha status as a result of contracting blue blood is what causes the visions. As a result, Cage and Rita concentrate on surviving the invasion and significantly improve their beach fighting skills. Nevertheless, they both continue to pass away and Cage loops repeatedly. Later, he develops feelings for Rita, and it wears on him emotionally to witness her demise repeatedly. In the following loop, he gives up and chooses to flee the base, going alone to a bar in London where he believes he can break free of the loop, but it is unsuccessful. He later learns that the mimics eventually conquer London after losing on the beach. After a number of failures and fatalities, Cage returns to training, finally arriving at Cage and Rita. Although inland Rita finds a van, she must remember to take the trailer off first. When they believe they are safe, a mimic emerges from inside the trailer. The Cage manages to dispatch it, losing some dead weight. She drives to the cage, and they both run up into the car to get away from the approaching mimics. After that, he discusses Rita and her private life, which surprises Rita when they arrive at a farm's house after running out of gas and discover a helicopter. Rita wants Cage to fly it, but he's worried about colliding with something. Cage finds a sizable wound that Rita had been concealing as she grunts and releases the helicopter's ties. As soon as Rita realizes Cage is attempting to convince her to remain in the farmhouse, she confronts him. Since Rita has already died on several occasions when they have looped back to the farmhouse, Cage tries to prevent her from dying again by going alone. Cage is mute when Rita presses him to explain why it matters what happens to her. Rita is now fully aware of his attraction to her, and he continues to get closer to her, but it appears that she is only concerned with the mission. Rita takes the key, starts the helicopter, which leads to an assault and ultimately results in her being knocked out. He tracks her down only to see her pass away in his arms. The nearby mimics soon surrounded them and killed him. In the loop that follows, Cage awakens and discovers Rita, but he decides against involving her and instead travels by himself to the German dam. Then he goes to the farmhouse alone after packing extra ammunition and batteries. He takes off in the chopper and lands at the dam. Going to the barrier, however, does not work as he had anticipated. He discovers nothing because the Omega is not there, and an Alpha ambushes him in an effort to prevent him from using his ability to reset time. Cage, however, intentionally drowns himself. In the following loop, Cage, Rita, and Carter put the puzzle pieces together in an effort to understand what the visions are all about. They come to the conclusion that the Omega overminds deception to fool the humans into invading Europe, where all of their armies would be ambushed and destroyed, was the real reason for the victory at Verdun. With no other clues, their only option was the device Carter built, which relays the signal based on his theory and even got him fired. Carter laments that some equipment is still needed for the device to be fully ready. The good news is that Rita and Cage are switching their attention to obtaining the equipment Brigham is in possession of after going through a lot and having encountered several failed attempts because they now know exactly what to do. Finally, Cage and Rita gained access to the Ministry of Defense. Cage demonstrates his ability to predict events and explains why they consistently lose the battle on the beach. He claims that in order to defeat the Omega, they must use the device in the safe. Brigham disagrees. Brigham later takes out the transponder and, to Cage's surprise, gives it to him after persuading him to do so. As they exit the building, soldiers start attacking them. Cage uses the opportunity to stab the transponder in his leg as they attempt to flee in a car. The Omega's true location is then revealed to be beneath Paris's Louvre Pyramid. When their getaway car crashes as they try to flee the Allied headquarters, the airbag renders Rita unconscious before she can murder Cage. Later, when Cage awakens in a hospital, he realizes that he is no longer in the loop and that, as a result of receiving a blood transfusion, he will never again be able to loop time. Rita attempts to kill Cage to stop the clock, but he tells her he is no longer capable of doing so. They quickly sneak out of the hospital, go back to the base, and come across the squad. He persuades them to assist in destroying the Omega before the invasion starts. In Rita's presence this time. Before they reach the building, the mimics attack their airship, and half of the squad is killed in the ensuing firefight. Cage. They then steal a military aircraft and fly toward Paris. Rita and the 3 squad members who are still alive use the last of the engine power to maneuver the airship into the museum, while the rest of the squad gives their lives to buy Cage and Rita some extra time. Once inside, Rita instructs Cage to go and detonate a grenade belt on the Omega, which is submerged underwater at the bottom of the Louvre, while she diverts the patrolling Alpha Mimic. While Cage disagrees, she insists that she must do it in order to put an end to the war. She claims that had she not been lured away in Alpha, standing between them and the submerged Omega, she could have encountered him under better circumstances. Rita gives Cage a kiss of appreciation for getting her this far. After a brief delay, Chase the Alpha kills Rita and captures her, while Cage dives and swims in the direction of the Omega while being pursued by the Alpha, who stabs him. However, Cage maintains composure, removes all of the grenade pins, and drops the belt into the Omega. When the Omega explodes, it also perishes. All the mimics perish alongside Cage, whose blood fuses with him to give him black eyes. Later, he awakens startled and discovers himself on the helicopter flight from the morning before the invasion to London. He sees the news, and the general reports that a mysterious explosion in Paris has killed all the mimics. The following day, the human forces will start sweeping across Europe. The J-Squad members are all still alive and well when he arrives at the base. When Cage goes to find Rita, she does not recognize him and greets him with the same icy attitude that she always displayed when they first met in the loop. When she asks him what he wants before the movie ends, Cage remains silent because he is so happy. Thank you for your support.